You ever get that feeling when you're talking to someone and it's like you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg? Like there's this whole other person, a whole other story churning away just beneath the surface. Well, the truth is, the clues are always there. They're everywhere. You just have to know the language. So let's get into it. Let's learn how to read what's really going on behind the mask. And that's really the big question, isn't it? I mean, why is it so tough? Well, from the time we're kids, we're basically taught to take people at their word. But words can be tricky. See, people rarely speak from a place of just pure, simple truth. More often than not, they're speaking from a place of survival, of ego, and a whole lot of fear. But here's where Nietzsche flips the script. He didn't see the mask as some kind of dishonest act. Not at all. For him, it was armor. It was absolutely necessary. So the point isn't that people are being fake. The point is that they're scared. That mask they're wearing, that's the version of themselves they had to build just to make it through the world. So let's start right there, with that persona, that constructed self that, let's be honest, we all put out there. Because if you can understand the mask, that's your first real step to understanding the person hiding behind it. And you've got to get this. This persona, it's a shield. It's a protective layer. The way someone smiles, the opinions they share, even the sound of their voice, so much of that is shaped by whatever kept them safe in the past. And that's why, most people aren't really hiding from you. In a strange way, they're hiding from themselves. Okay, now this is one of Nietzsche's most powerful and kind of brutal insights. It's all about projection. If you really want to read somebody, don't just look at what they say they admire. Look at what drives them crazy. Look at what they cannot stop criticizing in other people. Because that intense, burning criticism, it's often a direct pointer to their own biggest fears. And here's exactly how that works. Think about the person who's always mocking someone for being arrogant. There's a good chance they are terrified of their own feelings of worthlessness. Or what about the person who's a detective for dishonesty in everyone else? Well, they might just be hiding a pretty big truth they haven't been able to face themselves. Their judgment of the world is like a map to their own inner battlefield. Yeah, you want to be a little cautious around anyone who is just a little too loud about their own goodness, or is constantly correcting everyone else. Nietzsche saw this as a disguised will to power. Sometimes that big performance of morality isn't about being good. It's about feeling superior. Real virtue, real goodness, it doesn't need to shout from the rooftops. And really, when you get right down to it, this whole performance of being superior, it's just overcompensation. The person who has to tell you about every single accomplishment, deep down, they're probably terrified they aren't enough. The one who has to put other people down to get a laugh, they're scared of being overlooked. And the one who dominates every conversation? Well, behind that crown, you'll often find a scared little kid who's just trying to feel important. All right, let's take this a step further, because here's the thing about masks. They're not perfect. They slip, they crack, and it's in those little moments of tension, when someone's performance is under pressure, that the truth starts to leak out. And pay attention, because these aren't mistakes, they're clues.
Now, this one idea, this changes everything. We're always asking, what does that person want? But Nietzsche would say, that's the wrong question. The real question is, what are they afraid of losing? Fear of being rejected, fear of looking stupid, fear of being forgotten. That is the real engine driving almost everything we do. The truth doesn't live in what people chase. It lives in what they're desperately trying to protect.
And sometimes the biggest clue isn't in what's said, but in what's not said. That little pause, that hesitation before they answer a simple question, you feel it, right? That silence is deafening. It's a huge sign that they're avoiding something, trying to sidestep a vulnerability. And that tells you exactly what they're afraid of. And you gotta pay attention to the mismatches. When someone says something and then lets out this nervous, awkward laugh that just doesn't quite fit, that's the tension leaking out. The mind can lie, but the body rarely does. That little bit of forced laughter is a crack in the persona, and it's showing you the discomfort they're trying so hard to hide. Oh, you've heard this one before, I guarantee it. Someone says, "Oh, I honestly don't care what anyone thinks about me." Right. This kind of exaggeration, it's a huge tell. It's the ego basically shouting to try and drown out a very quiet, very deep-seated doubt. Whenever someone's statements get super absolute or extreme, don't listen to the words. Listen to the insecurity screaming underneath them. So this all gives us a simple but really powerful framework for spotting those cracks. First, you identify the fear. What are they protecting? Second, listen to the volume. Where do they get loud and exaggerate? And third, observe what they try to control. What do they obsessively manage? Because people who need to control their outer world so tightly, they're often doing it because they are absolutely terrified of their own inner chaos. Okay, so now we're going to go to the core, the final and the deepest layer of all. Because behind every mask and behind every crack in that mask, there's a wound. And most of our behaviors as adults, they're just echoes of things that happened a long, long time ago. This is such a huge concept, you have to really let it sink in. We all think we're making choices based on our beliefs and our logic, but so often what we're really doing is just reenacting the roles and the fears that we learned as kids. Their behavior isn't a philosophy, it's a biography. You see, people build their entire worldview around what hurt them the most, and then they use logic to build walls around that wound. So the person who says, "Oh, I don't believe in love, it's all a fantasy," they're not really stating a philosophical fact. They're protecting themselves from a pain they never want to feel again. Their arguments aren't really attacks, they're shields. And this is how a life pattern becomes a non-verbal confession. It tells a story. Think about it. The person who always ghosts people when things start to get serious, or the workaholic who can't stand to be still for a minute. These aren't random quirks. They are showing you over and over and over again exactly how they learn to protect themselves and exactly where it hurts. And this brings us to what Nietzsche saw as the ultimate test of a person's character. It's not about how strong they are. It's about how they treat someone who can't fight back. Someone who mocks weakness is just showing you they're afraid of their own. But the person who has the power to punish and chooses to forgive instead, well, that's someone who has fought and won the war inside themselves. And this, right here, is the most important part of all of this. This knowledge, it's not meant to be a weapon. It's not for judging people or manipulating them. The real goal is to see people so clearly that you stop being fooled, you stop taking their behavior personally, and you can finally start to connect with them with real grace and true understanding. Ultimately, it's all about a massive shift in how you see the world. It's about learning to see the scared child hiding behind the adult critic. It's about seeing the deep-seated fear that's driving the bully. It's about seeing the crushing guilt that fuels the arrogance. And once you can do that, everything changes. You stop reacting, and you start understanding. And when that happens, you become unshakable. And finally, of course, every single thing we've talked about, it isn't just a lens for looking at other people. It's a mirror. It's about your patterns, your fears, your mask. So the real question isn't just what you can now see in others. It's now that you have this guide, what do you finally see in yourself?